Episode 22. My guest today is Jesse Beltran. Jesse is on the cutting edge of research in a lot of very alarming topics that have to deal with basically our anonymity, our brain function, our neurodata. He raises a lot of serious concerns when it comes to, RFID chips being implanted in humans. And so we're going to go through everything today. So thank you for being here, brother. Cheers.
Cheers, brother.
This table, I feel like, gets longer and longer. But why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself and tell these people who you are.
Okay. Well, my name's Jesse Beltran. I'm a retired Sacramento City firefighter paramedic, born and raised in Sacramento, California. My background is in pre-hospital emergency medicine. I'm the former president of an organization that was established in 2010 called the International Center Against the Abuse of Covert Technologies, and we'll delve into what that was about. I'm an inventor, developer, and proprietary programming. I was one of the co-owners of the first line-of-sight microwave technologies in the city of Sacramento. Before the internet came along and they needed high-speed data, we would construct these specialized antennas so that corporations could transmit their data in an encrypted format at very, very high speeds.
Wait, so you're telling me internet hasn't always been around? What you telling me?
No. I've been an advocate for transparency and human rights, specifically around medical experimentation. And currently, I'm the president of an organization that's called Cosmic Clarity Connections, LLC, and our brand is MindNexus Live. And basically, how I got involved into this is back in 2010. I met a gentleman in Austin, Texas, here, by the name of Dr. John Hall. He's the author of 2 books. The first book is called A New Breed Satellite Terrorism in America, in which he writes about a phenomenon that happened to his fiance. And that's how he and I connected, because this also happened to someone who was very close to me at the time. His second book is called Guinea Pigs, Technologies of Control, in which he writes about my efforts across the United States and what I've done out there for the community, particularly United States citizens. Recently, there was a congressional hearing by the Department of Homeland Security in which a gentleman by the name of Colonel Greg Egren gave testimony. He's retired. And he gave testimony about a phenomenon called Havana Syndrome, or which is now the acronym they use is anomalous health incidences. And how this came to fruition is in Havana, Cuba, our diplomats were complaining about having a strange phenomenon. They were having these weird sounds that they were being transmitted to their heads.
What is the sounds?
They likened it to circadias. But it's an electronic sound, and it was followed by short-term, long-term memory loss, severe head pain, nausea, vomiting, vertigo, and reverberations to their heads. And they were only talking about this strange auditory symptom. And what Colonel Egren testified before the Department of Homeland Security is that this was not only happening to our diplomats, it was also happening to the best of our best in the CIA, the best of our best in the FBI, and is currently happening to congressional members. They only acknowledge that it is happening to federal employees. When I met Dr. John Hall here in Austin, Texas, is where it all began. For me on my story is he was seeing U.S. citizens who were having the same symptoms back in 2010. And he and I got on the topic, and I said, well, what is being done for these individuals? And he said, nothing. And what he was doing at the time is he was doing a phenomenon called RF testing, radio frequency testing. And I have a device here on the table. It's called the JM20 Pro, the one with the antenna sticking out. And he concluded that, well, he hypothesized that if this is indeed a signal that is being transmitted, there must be a way to detect it. And so he did this on a very small basis, and he was coming up with positive results. And so I said to him, and I said, well, isn't this enough for at least for the general practitioners to further investigate it? And he said, no, what was happening, as soon as they went to their general practitioners and started complaining about this phenomenon, that they were being railroaded into the mental health industry and being further victimized. Either they were being forced institutionalized or forced medicated. And this was not helping them. It only made things worse for them, and it basically destroyed their lives. So I decided, and most of my life has been in medicine. As an early age of 16, I worked in radiology. I was a darkroom tech. I became a cardiac telemetry tech shortly thereafter. And then I got my license to be a paramedic, and then became a firefighter.
So you working in those fields, you started off there. Did you ever see anything that was suspicious? Because I know a lot of these claims is like the dentist is helping to be a part of this implant that's going on, or this doctor or whoever. Did you ever see anything while you were working within the industry that led you to believe that there could be some sort of,
Not whatsoever. In fact, I totally believed in American medicine back then. I was, I was a diehard.
Yeah.
I wanted to help my community, and everything that I did was always aimed at, service to others. And so, I did that hook, line, and sinker, helped establish the pre-hospital paramedic transportation program in the city of Sacramento. But where this goes after I retired is, in speaking with Dr. Hall, I said, well, there's got to be some way to take these subjective complaints. And subjective complaints are things you can't really measure. You can't take a temperature. You can't put an EKG and get a heart rhythm. You can't do blood tests or anything for. So I said, there's got to be a way to take this subjective data and turn it objective. And so I decided to hold a short little meeting. What I anticipated maybe a handful of people would show up in Sacramento, California. And I said, hey, if you are having these symptoms, we would like to talk to you. And to my surprise, over 100 people showed up. It was standing room only. And each and every one of those individuals had the very exact same complaint of symptoms with very little deviation. So I said, well, we're on to something. So I said, well, why don't we start doing massive RF testing out in the field along with surveys, so we can see if there are any similarities or dissimilarities between each individual. And so in Davis, California, when we called that meeting, over 300 people showed up, and it was very daunting. I was very surprised, but that's when it all began. And what the data started to show initially is that those who were most likely to be affected by this were Caucasian females in their 40s, recently single, widowed, or divorced. Then followed by Caucasian males, African American females, African American males, Asians, Hispanics, and then it dwindled down in ethnicity from there. We went to the Midwest with the exact same results, and then we got into the Chicago region, where the criteria flipped a little bit between African American and Caucasian. And I believe that was strongly because of the demographics there. And that remained consistent all the way to the East Coast until one anomaly. I was invited up into Virginia to speak and test a group of all military subcontractors, about 80 to 100 individuals there. And at that point, because of my experience across the United States, I started to notice a peculiar aspect of an individual who would be going through this, and which would make them more susceptible to being manipulated, and that is a suggestibility complex. So depending on what your suggestibility was, your degree of suggestibility, you would most likely be affected in a very negative way. And what I mean by that is that you would be easily influenced to do things that you wouldn't normally do. What I didn't discuss in my background is I am also a certified master hypnotist. And the reason I became that is because I did notice this phenomenon of suggestibility happening where doctors, attorneys, even judges were just losing their lives, $1 million businesses, because they wouldn't accept the coaching that we do, and they went to their general practitioners because they've been conditioned on American medicine. And what was happening is that they were not being allowed to touch patients anymore. They were being railroaded into the mental health industry, and just completely being destroyed. I started to notice some categories of patterns. So when we scan someone with the JM20 Pro, they light up in very specific areas on the human body. It's not random. They're very specific. And for example, it would be the occipital area of the head, the right and left TMJ, which is the jaw joint, the base of the neck, right, left shoulder, the apex, the upper abdomen, the scapular region in the back and lower lumbars, and right, left hip, and occasionally down into the knee and calf area. So depending on your background, for example, we noticed that people who were incarcerated all lit up at very specific focal points, and you can superimpose their test over each other, and they're exactly the same. Anyone in the military, they would light up in a specific way, and then you would superimpose their scans over each other, and they were exactly the same. And then you had the civilian population, and they would light up exactly the same.
All different, but all superimposing on top of each other.
Correct, yeah. And there would be an occasional anomaly, and usually what we found out almost 100% of the time, if it wasn't an unusual area, it's because they had some specific surgery of some type. And so that was interesting. What this ended up doing is taking me across the seas to Europe. I was invited by a governmental agency in the Belgium region, and I was asked to come and test some of their diplomats. And they offered a controlled scientific environment, which is called an anechoic chamber. And an anechoic chamber is designed to block out frequency spectrums. This particular one was rated from 8 kilohertz up to 19 gigahertz. And the frequencies that we were detecting were well within that spectrum. So we took control groups, so people who weren't symptomatic during that time. This was around 2012. And we would bring them into the environment, and we were scan them, not expecting to find anything, and we didn't. But what was really exciting is we used a frequency counter. So after we detect an anomalous frequency, then we would come back with a frequency counter to see if we can get a numeric frequency. So we were documenting these in the field, but when we tested the control group with the frequency detector, it read 0. So we're really excited about that because we knew we were in the perfect environment to do the testing. And so what we did is we brought in symptomatic people, and we have video that we can show to your audience, or as we go along, and I'll provide the slides. And once it read 0, we were all smiles. Then we brought in the symptomatic individuals that we had tested in the field, and we were detecting signals in the anechoic chamber. Okay, so why were we doing this? So even our diplomats, the FBI agents, the CIA agents, they're all talking about hearing this weird auditory symptom. And the thing about it is it follows them everywhere. They can't get away with it. Although the federal government is saying it only happens to federal employees, we know darn well that it was happening to civilians. Mm-hmm. And as early as 2010, and I have cases that are before that.
And this isn't isolated to Havana?
No.
Right. Okay.
They call it Havana Syndrome. Yeah. But, I call it, back then we were calling it electronic terrorism, because each of these individuals are being terrorized 365 days a year, 24/7. Okay. Now, our federal employees are saying they can't get away from the sound. Okay. And it's following them. The
Is
same
it
thing
like a
with
soft sound, or is it overbearing? I
it,
can't
it,
hear conversations.
well, I'll get into that. They say auditory symptoms, but really what they should saying is some of them are hearing voices.
Mm.
Okay. And the same thing is happening in the civilian population. And what we hypothesize is that if this signal is detectable, which it was, and we concluded for whatever reason these emissions were coming from the person, and that's not normal, that there has to be something unique to the individual that allows them to receive that signal. So ultimately, what ended up happening, and we have a case that I can discuss now, her name is Bonnie Kellerby, the Bonnie Kellerby case. She was one of my very first clients and who came up positive on a preliminary RF scan. What ultimately happened is Bonnie Kellerby had 3 implants removed from her person. They were biosensors. We have photographs. Chain of custody was adhered to. They were analyzed in a lab, and they came back as electronic components with nano wires.
Now, what are
you
these?
name
Are
it.
these like
They're
organic
biosensors.
type looking devices? Do
Yeah.
they look like a chip? Is there wires?
They come in various different shapes and sizes. I can. This is a good indicator. I can
Yeah,
show
I've
you
seen
that.
those
Yeah, you see
online,
those
but
online.
they all
Yeah.
just look like tissue to me.
They're
That's why
not
it's-
tissue.
Yeah.
Actually, if you look at the actual study,
Yeah.
it actually shows you the components. It shows you the patent numbers, the serial numbers. They can all be traced back to
We'll put a link to that
Yeah.
on the podcast as well, so people can look at it.
yeah, basically biomedical companies, military subcontractors, who are all developing these type of technologies.
But is it like metallic devices, like wrapped in tissue that they're removing?
They're silicone based with electronic components in them.
Okay.
Okay. Just a history about implants. Back in the 40s, the military was implanting our soldiers with a large grain of rice type RFID chip. And into the 70s and 80s, it became a small grain of rice. And then into the late 80s, they were approaching the size of a letter on a penny. There's a case in Southern California. He's a politician. He's by the name of Dave Larson. Actually, these are the implants that were removed out of Mr. Larson. He had over 10 of these removed from him, and he sued. And the judge threw it out because he inadvertently signed up to be in a study. Now, we also advocate for full disclosure. If you're going to be put in a study, that it's important that you be told what's going to be done with you, because if he had been told that these things were going to be put in him, he would never have done it. And what were they doing? They were transmitting real-time biological data. So, for example, heart rates, respirations, body temperature, blood sugars, this type of data. And they were being sent to repeaters in the Southern California area, and they have all of it documented in his case. But again, it was thrown out because he did sign on to that.
And who was doing that? Who was recording that data?
These were medical, biomedical engineering companies, firms down in Southern California.
Like private companies?
Private companies, yes.
And they had
And
gotten
research institutions.
They had gotten these devices into his body.
To his body.
And they won the case.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. So then into the 90s, early 2000s, they were getting smaller and smaller. And then we'll get into where we're at today. Where we're at today is now these devices are approaching nano size,
Right.
are nano size. It's not approaching, we're there.
Yeah.
Okay. And the problem with this is that this is being done non-consensually. This has been done without consent. And this is not just happening to federal employees. Not too long ago, I had the head doctor of a 3-letter agency call me. I'm a nobody. I'm just a firefighter paramedic from Sacramento, California. But he called me and he says to me, Mr. Beltran, you and Dr. Hall are kind of Renaissance man. And he says, the reason I'm calling you is because I just want to tell you you're correct. I go, correct on what? And he says that there's significant overlap between the 338 federal employees that he's seen for Havana Syndrome and the clients that we see for what they're experiencing. He says the only difference is that you have cases that you're surgically removing implants. So that's what he was intrigued about. So we knew we were on target, because why would someone of that caliber be contacting me if what we were finding wasn't true? Okay.
Was he choosing to be remain anonymous, or?
Well, he made me promise that I would not ever say his name. Yeah.
Because I've always been an active guy, training, pushing myself. But once I learned how caffeine forces your body into that fight or flight mode, I realized it was wrecking my recovery. I'd get the boost, but I couldn't really rest. That's when I came across methylene blue. It gives me clean energy, sharper focus, and I could still recover. Honestly, it changed everything for me in the gym, in business, and in life. Then I discovered alpha lipoic acid. On its own, it's a strong nootropic, boosting choline, which drives brain and body performance. But when you combine it with methylene blue, it's on another level. That's why I worked with the partner to create Magic Bullet, methylene blue plus ALA. For me, methylene blue was powerful on its own, but with ALA, it's the only way I do it now. Right now at bluevitality.com, you can pick up a full bottle of Magic Bullet for just $39.95. Use my promo code SJ to get 20% off the regular price. If you're serious about your training, your focus, or your recovery, this is the way to go. I got a question for you. So, are you guys like just pioneers in this, like trying to find these in people's bodies? Like, because you've been doing it since what, 2011?
2010.
2010?
2010.
Were people looking at this before that?
You know, there were complaints about it, but no one's ever looked into this.
Yeah.
This has always been a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist type topic. But if you look at where we're at today with the nanotech industry, we now know that this is conspiracy fact. There's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ido Bachelet. In 2013, he gave a TED-Med talk in Israel. And Dr. Ido Bachelet held up in front of the audience, and then again, that's something we'll show. He's on video saying this. He's holding up a 1cc syringe, and he's saying, I just brought this from my lab. And then the tip of this needle are 1,000 billion robots. Okay. That's how small we're talking about. 2,000 times the width of a human hair. Not only does he brag about these robots being in the syringe, and he talks about how it's a benefit to humanity. And I would agree with him in one aspect, that technology in and itself is not good or bad. It's who is in control of the technology that makes it good or bad. He also expresses to the audience how these nanorobots basically are designed and to be controlled by computer code, various languages, various disciplines of computer languages. And he teaches his students how to control these things, all things, with an Xbox controller.
Of course.
So when they're in a host, then you can control exactly where you want these to go.
And how do these devices in your body, are they electronic components? How are they being powered? How are they keeping power?
Yeah, they keep power through the piezoelectric effect of our body naturally produces a certain amount of amperage, voltage. Okay. And that's how they're predominantly controlled. There's a thing called graphene oxide. Graphene oxide is the main component that allows these things to self-assemble, self-replicate, and they actually cross the blood-brain barrier. Okay. They can actually be programmed to carry a payload, so that if you send a certain RF emission to them, they'll open up and release whatever payload's in them.
Oh, great.
Okay. So an interesting fact is, after that magic jab event that we had, we started to see an uptick in complaints about this phenomenon. None like I've ever seen in the past. And when we started doing the RF testing after that, we were finding on average 12 to 13 locations coming up positive on the human body. Whereas in the past, it was maybe anywhere from 4 to 8, 10 on the high side. So something has happened that's very different. And there's a Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. I don't know if you've ever heard her name, but she speaks about the PCR testing. So anyone who's been tested for COVID, on the tip of that PCR testing was a hydrogel. And in that hydrogel was this graphene oxide.
Jesus, I was going to ask you if this shit could possibly be incorporated with the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to put it in a vaccine. They could have just done it with the nose swab that they were getting everybody. Because, that makes sense because a lot of people refused to get the vaccine, but everybody willingly agreed to get the nose swab to see if they had COVID.
Correct. It was the Trojan horse.
What the fuck, man?
Yeah.
What are the chances right now that you think, what % of the population across the world do you think has these little nanobots inside of them?
Colonel Egren, let's go by what Colonel Egren testified before Congress. He said that this phenomenon was happening on every continent with the exception of Antarctica. Well,
but what % of the population?
Yeah, I would say it's a high percentage. If you've had that PCR test, you probably have this stuff in you. Now, that's not the only way it's being spread. It's being sprayed. It's in our foods. If you look at cosmetics, what's the new marketing schema? This has a new nanotech delivery system. Okay, this is really cool. This is why you need it. This is why it makes it special. Cosmetics. We now know. I just did a presentation down in Southern California with a group that supported Secretary RFK's run for president, and they asked me to come and speak to the group. It's also was being televised or sent out via podcast to approximately 10 million people, and that was being done by director Matthew Scow, who did a docuseries called Died Suddenly. He's now working on a new docuseries called Nano Sapiens, where I'm being featured in that documentary about our work. And what we're basically trying to do is educate the population, because we can demonstrate that there are several patents out there now that show that there is a wide body area network system that not only is being implemented upon us without consent, but we do know through specific studies that under high sophisticated microscopes that they are finding these nano robots not only in the vaccine, specifically Pfizer and Moderna. They also are being found in the xylocaine anesthetic. So if you use any type of numbing agent where you get a stitch, guess what? It's in that. Okay.
Well, they could put it in anything that introduces to the body. They could put it in deodorant.
Correct.
You're like literally especially for women, they're shaving their armpits, they're putting little tiny cuts in their skin, and then they're putting deodorant over the top of it that would introduce it into their bodies.
Yeah, there are even patents right now currently that they're talking about using our food system as a delivery system for vaccines. Tomatoes, for example. There's a patent on how to use that to deliver vaccines, but the controversy over that is how do you know what dosage you're giving to a human being?
So there's a dosage of how many of these nano bots they can put inside of us. Well, that's good to know. Yeah. Don't want to overdose. Jesus.
Yeah. So
it's probably in this whiskey we're drinking.
It could be. So, there is the micro needle delivery system that I was referring to. This is a patent.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And so what happens when you put it in the mucosa? Yeah. You completely go right up to the
brain.
Right to the brain, right? There is a patent out by AT&T. It's called Biological Routing Systems. And what this system does, it allows you to do transactions, monetary transactions, just by biological cells within the human body. Okay.
What kind of monetary transactions?
We're talking, if we're going to be going to a digital system, what would you need? Okay. The wideband patents that they're implementing on society basically is integrating us into the Internet of Things. You're being completely integrated into a system where you're going to the most government agencies around the world are going to have complete control and know everything that you're doing.
Yeah. Are they disguising these private companies? Like, are these all subsidized companies through the government? Have you looked into their connection to the government?
Yes. And it's interesting you say that. When we analyze the frequencies that we're detecting, they all go back to a military subcontracting company. They go back to a research university or a teaching hospital. And the big ones are Lockheed Martin, BlackRock, IBM, those Raytheon. These are the types of companies that are all really delving into this tech. People ask me, so why is this being done? Well, we know that the United States has the tech. We know that Russia probably was the premier and foremost leader. President Putin said the first country to master psychotronic weapons, and he did this, he gave an interview in the Politico, is going to be the country to rule the world. We know the UK has this. We know China has this.
Is this the new race to the moon?
Well, I think we're in a war. I think we're in a new type of war. And just think about it. If you can master the human mind, then you can manipulate population sets. You can divide population sets.
Well, these devices, can they control like your thought process, your feelings, your emotions? Is that what are we looking at as far as like what the possibilities become with what these things are capable of?
That's a great question. So there's a document that was released in November of 1994. It was called The New World Vistas. And it was produced by the United States Air Force in order to keep the United States Air Force a superpower 50 years into the future. And in that report, on page 89, is titled Biological Processes. And in that, it talks about utilizing radio waves to manipulate the human physiology. And in that, it talks about being able to imprint memory sets and erase memory sets. So this was in 1994. So let's go back even further. In 1972, our United States government released a report. They were doing experimentation on how to do behavior modification in human beings. So unfortunately, the weakest of our society are the ones that are experimented on. And what I mean by that, usually people in the mental health industry or our prisoners. Those are the guinea pigs. And in Vacaville Prison, in that report, in 1972, they were already able to remotely assess your biometrics. And in that report, it also says they were even able to remotely read your thoughts. Okay. And we'll share that with the audience too. So everything that I say is not subjective. We don't present anything without the proof. And that's very important. And that's what has made us successful in this fight in order to educate humanity. And that's what this fight is really about, because this transhumanism agenda, which is being imposed upon this, and I believe you have a close friend by the name of Alex Jones who has been covering this topic. This is where we're at. The new terminology for humans today who have this in us, and this tech in us. So if you've had the vaccine, particularly if it's Pfizer or Moderna, you have this in you. If you had the PCR testing and you had that hydrogel that contained the graphene oxide, you have this in you. Okay. Homo Borg Genesis is a new term for the new human species. There's another term they use, Homo borg erectus. So, but those are the two titles that are given to this new.
So are you saying Alex Jones was right?
He was spot on.
He's gonna love that.
Yeah, Alex is spot on.
Would you say he's closer to the truth than Elon Musk?
Well, I'll tell you what, Alex is being honest.
Yeah.
He's just in your face, honest and brutal about it. And that's what we need. We need more warriors. We need more heroes in society, because this is no longer about us, honestly. I think it's too late.
Yeah.
But it's about our generations to come, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. There is a company called Cognify. And it if you Google it and watch their video, and it's the future of incarceration. Okay, that's what it's titled. And with this Cognify system, let's say you do a crime, or maybe you act out against the government, or you have a belief system that is not consistent with the country that you live in, okay? And you are prosecuted for a crime by their definition. You will then get an opportunity to choose. You can take, let's say let's just use this for hypothetical, a measly petty theft. You can spend 50 years in prison, or you can go through the Cognify process, which in 3 minutes, they will imprint memory sets. So let's say there was someone who was even harmed by the crime that you did. You will be able to feel the emotions of your victim, the emotions that the family members went through, all of that. You will be forced to have the empathy. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. And you will feel like you've been imprisoned for 25 years or whatever it may be, but it's only 3 minutes.
This is Black Mirror type stuff.
Yes. So it's only 3 minutes. And I'm not joking. You watch it and it will just blow you away. But remember, they say this is for the goodness of society.
Sure.
Okay. Would you trust your government with your memory sets? Here's the problem. I became a hypnotist for a reason. Let's throw the technology aside. Okay. If you have the right suggestibility, you can do this with just about anyone.
Of course. Would they rather spend the time in jail or just go through this 3-minute program?
But they wouldn't know it was 3 minutes. They would think it's 25 years. And guess what? In the Cognify system, they also bring your family members in for therapy so that they can help you, so they can all deal with the new memory sets that you have.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's where we're going. Okay. So even the incarceration system is going to have a significant change as we progress through this process of, transhumanism that we're doing. Now, they're also attaching an AI aspect of it. So eventually, what they're talking about, and Elon has touched on this, he says this verbatim: we are producing an AI god. Okay. It integrates with all of this biotech. And if you do something wrong, guess what? AI God punishes you or erases your memory sets, changes and manipulates your emotions and your thought processes so you're in line. The human autonomy is gone if we allow this to happen. So if I were to ask you, do you think this is legal? What would you say?
Absolutely not.
Well, you're wrong. This is completely legal. In 2016, President Obama...
Of course it was Obama.
In 2016, under the
Obama.
21st Century Cures Act, which was marketed to the U.S. population to fight the opioid epidemic crisis in the United States. What was hidden in that is a section called 3024. And in Section 3024, it specifically says that non-consensual experimentation is legal on U.S. citizens without their consent as long as it doesn't exceed minimal risk criteria. Okay, so what is minimal risk criteria? Minimal risk criteria means that nothing that doesn't happen in normal everyday life. And so I pose this statement: does death happen in normal everyday life? One would say yes. The other problem with that 21st Century Cures Act is all of the IRBs and all that data is protected by national security protocols. Okay? So even if you did a FOIA request to see if you're on an IRB, we can't release that information.
Wow.
Because it's protected. So it even gets worse. In 2024, before the Biden administration transitioned over to the Trump administration, they codified that criteria to extend to private entities. That means research entities, military subcontractors, private entities that are all involved in research. So currently it is absolutely legal to do. And so we are also campaigning. We have a URL called stop3024.com, and we're asking everyone to please sign that petition. We're trying to get to 1 million signatures so that we at least can have some teeth to get those who might be able to help to listen.
Yeah.
And that's so imperative.
Yeah. So back to these devices. So now we know that they're out there. Most of us probably already have it in us. So I know you guys are able to find and remove some of these objects that are implanted in people. But with this newest stuff, you're saying it's at the nanoscale.
Correct.
So how are you going to remove stuff at the nanoscale?
Well, that's a good question. And once we realized that this is what we were facing, we were like, well, what are we going to do now? Those who have the larger stuff that can be surgically removed, you're lucky. Okay. You're lucky because it can be identified. Mm-hmm. And we now have doctors who are willing to help us. It's taken 20 years to get to this point where they'll do, high resolution ultrasounds. Once we detect, actually they go through our process. We do find that there are some positive RF emissions or even detections of semiconductors at specific areas. That they'll do the medical studies, and then if they find something that can be excised, then they'll refer them over to a surgeon who can remove these. But with the nanotech, it's been an issue, and I prayed long and hard, nights without sleep. How are we going to help people now? And there is a solution, I believe. And there's been some peer-reviewed studies on high-grade zeolite. Now, zeolite is usually found, and it's sourced at 2 locations, usually blue zones. I don't know if you know what a blue zone is on the Earth. It's areas where humans tend to live far longer and healthier than the rest of the population around the globe. And it's because of the water and the way their diet and so forth. But it's always has to have volcanic activity where the diatomaceous earth and the sea meet. And that's where they get this pure high-grade zeolite, which has a negative charge to it. And there's a doctor by the name of Hildegard Staninger, and she's probably one of the foremost frontiers on nanotech. Back in 2010, I thought she was a little out there. But it turns out that she's been spot on. And so I've reversed my opinion, what I had back there in 2010 now. But this has a negatively charged process. And when it's integrated into the human body, what it does is it binds to the graphene oxide. And so they've done studies now where they did a baseline, exposed people to the graphene oxide, and then what they see is that after about 90 days, it'll be down to a minimal level. Now, it doesn't get rid of it altogether, and the reason is that we're constantly exposed to it. So the thing is you need to keep it down as low as possible in order to minimize the symptoms. And what we're finding is most people who are on this right now are saying they're having significant improvements in how they're feeling, the symptoms that they're getting, and it's and as much as over 50%.
And so what are the other symptoms, like you mentioned, like the ringing in the ears or the cicada sounds in people's ears, which here in Texas, we got really bad cicadas.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that's got to be awful for
it just compounds it more. Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
So they get electrical shocks to the body. It's almost like you're being remotely tased. Okay. Now there's a case in Southern California, in Elk Grove, California, which is just south of Sacramento. And this happened to be my neighbor. Her name was Dawn DeVore. She was a nurse that worked for the Department of Corrections. And she blew the whistle on what was being done to the prisoners. She realized that they were being experimented on. What they were doing is they were implanting them, taking them to the infirmary, using sedatives, knocking them out, implanting them, and they were doing experiments and sending frequencies that would cause them to be lethargic for days at a time. They wouldn't even go out in the yard. They would just sleep all day. They would try to provoke aggression, and they would send out another frequency. And even when provoked, they said it was 100% success. The prisoners were not getting aggressive. But
you said they can make them aggressive if they want to?
They can make them aggressive if they want to.
Mm.
Yeah. So, but she blew the whistle, and they turned around and did the same thing to her. She had these implants removed from her. She sued, and they settled out of court. I think she got like $5 million.
Wow. How did they get the implants inside of her?
You know, that's a good question. I never did find out the background on that.
Mm.
All I know is she sent me an email asking, what's going on in Elk Grove because of this phenomenon. It happened to her and it happened to someone in her family also as well.
Mm.
But they were trying to, just imagine, they were trying to get her to look like she was crazy.
Yeah.
So that they would dismiss the case. Currently, there's another case on the East Coast where a military soldier who I scanned up in Virginia is currently going through the system. And the only reason it's going through the system and it has not been dismissed is because the bullet has been removed from him. He's had implants removed from him.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we try, if we can, to see if it's possible and we can identify something of a size that can be surgically removed, then that's the holy grail. Because then it's not subjective anymore. You have the hardcore evidence, you have the hardcore data. With this nanotech phenomenon, it's going to be more difficult. There's still a way. You can do hair toxicology studies to look for the markers of the nanotech being in you.
So your body will send out signals saying there's a foreign object inside of it?
Well, you can measure chemically through the toxicology reports, see the graphene oxide in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's what you're looking for. All those markers that are associated with the nanotech.
So these devices that can alter people's moods and behavior and anger, whatever. Could this stuff be being used sort of like an MK Ultra for assassination type events, like in recent news? Because a lot of times you see a lot of these assassins, the supposed alleged shooter, they typically don't have any recollection of it. Even JFK's assassin. When they caught the guy and he goes, "I believe you that you said I did it." He's like, "I just don't remember doing it."
Correct. Sir Hunter. Yeah. So I will say this. There is two cases that come to mind right now. A gentleman by the name of Aaron Alexis. He contacted me and he says, "I hear that you can help me. I'm going through this phenomenon." He was identifying all the symptoms that are associated with Havana Syndrome or AHIs or electronic terrorism. And I said, well, I can help you gather data or evidence on this journey. And I said, but it's not a fast one. It's not a fast fix. It's going to be, it's a long journey. And I spoke to him. I thought he was going to go along with the program. And the next thing I know, he went and killed, I think it was like 12 people over at the Navy Yard on the East Coast. And at the butt of his rifle, he wrote ELF, extremely low frequency.
Whoa.
That's what it stood for. Okay.
Whoa.
And another case, Myron May. He was an attorney out of Florida, and he contacted me. And he was expressing the same symptoms and he said, "I heard you can help." And I said, "That's the same thing I expressed to him." And he says, "I ain't got time for this. I got bigger fish to fry." I had no idea he was going to go and harm anyone. Otherwise, I would have intervened, just like the Aaron Alexis. If I would have known, I would have intervened. And it haunts me every day. And he went and killed 3 people at the university's research facility at University of Florida. So
So how has that changed as far as like whenever you get somebody that comes to you and they're complaining of similar thoughts or different patterns? Are you taking it a little bit more seriously now? And
Well, it's not like I didn't take it seriously. I
no,
had no
I know what
indicator.
you.
Yeah,
I'm sure you took it seriously,
yeah.
but I mean, as far as like, let's hurry up. Let's
I
get
don't
this.
play. I don't
Yeah,
play
you
anymore.
can't, right?
No, you can't.
Because
No.
if they're coming to you, you're their last option.
Yeah,
They probably exhausted all the other options.
correct. Yeah. And so I will say this: the kid that attempted to assassinate President Trump. Um, he was in a BlackRock commercial,
I sure do.
and you know that they cremated his body without his parents' consent.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, a coincidence? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, wow, this is very scary and alarming. And I think, I've been having talks since I started studying your stuff and researching what you've done and been putting out there. And just from talking to my kids, my fiance and everybody or my friends, just everybody's just kind of like angry. There's angry, and I don't want to talk about this. This is too much. I hope this isn't real, but it is real. You're saying this is real. Who are some of your biggest critics that are fighting back, and what are they saying to you?
I'm not getting any pushback, and that's what's strange.
Really?
Yeah.
Does that alarm you in the fact that this could be psychological warfare?
Well, it is a form of psychological warfare.
Hmm.
If just remember, if you can imprint memory sets and erase memory sets, what does that mean for humanity? Okay, we're now seeing patents that talk about being able to do transactions through your biological person.
Hmm.
With what does that mean? With the advent of AI, which is I think more serious than we think. Be careful what you ask for, right? Okay. Are we going to need as many people on this planet if a lot of the traditional ways of monetarily earning income are no longer there?
Yeah, but I feel like everybody carries a cell phone around with them nowadays. You don't even need to implant things in people's bodies to do that. You could have all that tech right there in your phone. Like to me, if they're putting stuff inside your body, it's more for more nefarious things that they have planned.
Yeah,
And
but
maybe they're introducing it with, hey, we're just going to use this for that. But you can do the same thing with your phone, most of the stuff that they're trying to do.
well, with this nanotech though, it can attach to your DNA. Remember, whatever it's programmed to do, it can manipulate.
Yeah.
So, if you're able to basically alter people's thoughts, their emotions, their belief systems remotely, um, and they would never even know it, you would believe that it's real, and no matter how hard I tried to pound on your head to get you to listen,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to matter. You're going to believe it wholeheartedly, and no one's ever going to be able to alter that thought process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What kind of power does that bring to the table, particularly if you're a world government or a world leader? If you want to have a one world belief system,
Mm-hmm.
it's the perfect weapon.
All right, let's use this equipment and scan me and see if I got anything. So,
Okay.
quick backstory. So when I was in the military, I went through a portion of training where I was exposed to a lot of like very, very cold temperatures. And so one of the things that the military did was they gave me and all of my brothers, we had to take this very large capsule. And I can't remember if it was clear or not, but it was definitely like you could hear something rattling around in it. I mean, this thing was big. It's the biggest pill I've ever had to swallow. So you take it. You don't have a choice. You're in the military. You do what you're told. So I take this pill. I swallow it down. And what they said the reason is because they wanted to be able to scan the internal core temperature of everybody. Because you're exposed to such cold temperatures, they have to make sure every so often they have to make sure that they don't have somebody that's on the verge of hyping out. Because then it could become a very dangerous medical situation. So that's what they said it was for. But I always wondered in the back of my mind, like for one, I was like, am I going to shit this thing out? Is this thing going to stay inside me forever? I don't remember shitting it out. And then two, I always wondered, was that the only thing they used that for? Because it seems to me, it always seems strange, especially there's a lot of military, people that end up committing shootings like we've seen recently. And so I wonder if that's a way that they could track us and they could disguise it by saying, hey, we're doing this just to make sure you're safe. So Jesse brought his equipment here, this very, very expensive equipment. He's going to scam me today.
So I do want to touch on that. I think off camera, I think we spoke about this. I have a case right now where we have a special ops soldier who came to me because he was having a strange phenomenon, loss of time, was having intermittent auditory symptoms. And so we scanned him and he came up positive, and then ended up finding a frequency on him that was unusual. I hadn't seen in the 20 years that we've been doing this.
Unusual. What's an unusual frequency?
I don't want to say it, the frequency specifically, but it's a specific frequency. And so I expected it. I said, well, let's research who has the leasing rights through the FCC. And
so there's specific frequencies that are licensed to specific organizations
all over the world.
Nobody else can use that except for the one who owns that license?
The leasing rights to it. And the reason all the countries throughout the world have these agreements because they don't want overlap or crosstalk. Okay. And although, in surveillance, we know that, those are breached a lot of the times. But when we researched it, we expected it to be owned by the United States government, hands down. But we couldn't find it. And intuitively, I said, you know what? Well, let's check Europe. And sure enough, we got a hit. And that frequency rights were owned by NATO. And it was specifically to track assets, military assets.
Was he ever deployed to another country?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
Yeah,
Where was he?
He was in the Middle East.
Okay.
Yeah, he was in the Middle East.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, interesting enough, another gentleman in this particular soldier, and I trust him like a brother, found out that Dr. Greer also has another case very similar to his.
Stephen Greer? Dr. Stephen Greer?
Stephen Greer, with the same frequency spectrum. So what does that mean? Why does NATO have leasing rights for our soldiers, a U.S. soldier? You can ponder that for a while, but and what does that mean? Is this one world order, this one world agenda?
How many frequencies are out there?
Oh, there's thousands,
tens of thousands, or
more than that. Yeah,
wow.
Even with in fact, Dr. Greer did an interview with a gentleman by the name of Stephen Pollack, and Stephen Pollack was in the infancy dealing with a lot of these tracking devices, and he was talking about in Silicon Valley, you can put on a wafer over 100,000 of these chips, and he says they all disappeared. And he says, and you can put almost an infinite amount of frequency spectrums on these things.
What is that? What's a wafer?
A wafer is about a 1 by 1 inch square module. It's just a weight to measurement. But he said over 100,000 of these chips were on them.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's out there. You can Google that interview, and it's very interesting, and it's very enlightening what Stephen Pollack shares. He says somehow, even back then, that those with clearances even above our president somehow have access to the information. There's nothing that they don't know. Recently, I heard, I'm forgetting the name, that they believe that even our Secret Service is infiltrated, that's protecting President Trump, and that these organizations know what President Trump's going to do before he knows. Yeah. So that was an interesting statement. How would that be if they weren't able to read your thoughts?
Interesting. Yeah. All right, let's do it. Let's see what bugs they got in me. Let's go to this side over here so the camera can see. Okay.
All righty. Let's take off your hat. So just FYI, this doesn't transmit greater than Wi-Fi. It's like a 2.4 gigahertz frequency. When I am across your eyes, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. But any interest?
So close my eyes when you're going over my head?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's a semiconductor. So even at this distance, I can track that that's an electronic device. So even if it's on or off, if it's off, it'll turn it on and send a harmonic to it.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get a secondary harmonic that says that this is an electronic component. If it's metal based, then we'll get a third harmonic that says it's metal based.
Okay.
Okay, so just that's silicone based.
Wow, got one in my brain. Great.
These are typically where we find them. Also silicone based. Apex. Usually on both. And then the abdomen.
Can you turn the volume up? So, just so this camera can pick up on all this.
Yeah. You have something in your pocket? No?
Keys.
That's keep off is what it was picking up.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's clean. So you know it's accurate. Well,
Yep.
electronic component.
It is picking up
Yeah.
on all electronics.
Yeah, so believe it or not, we do get positive findings in their genitalia turnaround. So I expect the occipital, base of the neck, scapula, both scapulas. This is typical of a soldier. You good? That's it.
Jesus Christ.
Did you have the COVID? Did you have the vaccine?
No.
PCR?
No.
You didn't do a COVID test?
I did the test. I didn't take the vaccine though.
Okay.
Well, folks, I am riddled with nanobots. I just learned today.
Well, all it says is that it's positive for a semiconductor presence. So, we'd have to do a couple other things, but that's the gist. Typically, what we'll do is we'll do the JM20 Pro first,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll mark those areas, and then we'll scan over those areas. And what we're seeing now is that wherever the JM20 Pro is lit up, that the linear junction detector is also lighting up. And this is how the Bonnie Kellerby case, how they found those implants in her and how they were removed.
So even if you were to find and remove these objects, your entire body's already littered with the stuff anyways.
And so that's why we say that the high-grade zeolite is probably your best bet right now until I am working with a team of very talented people because these things can be programmed.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that we can create a program to make it inert. And so we are currently doing studies.
Now, where can people buy this zeolite?
So there is a product called Masterpiece, and they source it from the two blue zones on the planet. And it's high-grade zeolite. It's natural. It's not synthetically made. If it's synthetically made, you don't want to take it.
Okay.
And if you go to our website under services, there's an area where you can buy the Masterpiece.
Okay.
And if you type in MNX, you get a significant discount on it. So, but that's something that you're right now until we can come up with a solution how to make this stuff inert.
Mm-hmm.
At least a maintenance process that you can do currently.
Now that stuff, do you take it once and you're good, or is
No? You have to. According to the creator, it's you take 5 drops in the morning and 5 drops in the evening. And what zeolite does, because it's negatively charged, it'll bind with the metals, these toxic metals within your body, and you'll excrete it through your urine, your sweat, defecation, women menstrual cycles. It'll all come out, and all the studies show this. So it's not subjective or hypothetical. It's all science-based, and that's what we recommend right now. And like I said, the individuals who are suffering from these symptoms are having significant improvements right now. So we're really excited about that as a potential temporary process for right now until we get down to the bottom of making this stuff inert.
And can you go through some of the symptoms of like what people would feel maybe they're walking around with today and they don't really quite understand that it could be related to this?
Yeah.
It's pretty apparent from watching the news today. Violent criminals are not going away anytime soon, and you need to have somebody watching your back. Whether that's you personally, your family, your friends, or your business, Iconic Security is our premier personal protection firm, founded by a former Navy SEAL, a former Secret Service agent, and a former U.S. attorney. With over 60 years of combined military, law enforcement, and intelligence experience, we deliver unmatched, discreet security tailored to your needs. From executive protection and secure nights out to residential patrols, event security, cyber threat defense, and expert consulting, Iconic ensures your safety with precision and care. No shortcuts, no drama, just peace of mind. Visit iconicsecurity.com to build your custom protection plan today. Iconic Security, because your safety is non-negotiable. A link to the website can be found in the description of this podcast. Thank you for your time, and stay safe out there.
So if you're, the biggest symptom is the auditory. You'll get like this electronic sound, and it's almost like someone's messing with the volume knob. Right and left ear, you'll hear this electronic sound. Then it's followed by brain fog, dizziness, nausea, vomiting. Your vertigo is off. It's not to say, I always tell people you want to go and see your physician. Don't tell them that you think you have implants. Don't tell them that you have an AHI. Just tell them the symptoms. It's their job to diagnose what's going on. And then it's followed by electronic shocks to the extremities. They talk about this reverberation, which is called buffeting in the body. There is some diagnostic criteria that they do. They do a vestibular test. They are doing MRIs, and they are finding in a lot of these cases there is brain damage, like you're having mild concussions. And they believe it has something to do with this EMP frequency phenomenon. But
Interesting.
yeah.
So I want to get into stuff a little bit lighter. We're about at the halfway mark right now, but just to mix it up a little bit.
Okay.
What do you think about this Atlas comet? Are you keeping up with all this?
Yeah, I've been watching it. The jury's still out, but it is interesting because of the size of it. They are detecting some type of frequency emission from it. What does that mean? Is it something that's natural? I mean, or is this something that's, more advanced than that?
It's very strange.
Yeah.
This thing appears to have a tail on the front, and it's emitting some sort of cyanide cloaking device, and it's making intelligent maneuvering decisions, right? You would think it'd just be flying in a linear fashion, just going in a straight line, maybe getting pulled by gravity, but that's predictable. This thing is making course corrections.
Correct.
And I don't know what the latest one is, but the weirdest thing that I just saw yesterday is that so all of these space organizations around the planet, they're all trying to show each other up at all times. They're all trying to be the first to see something, or first to post pictures, or it's this big competition to see who's got the best space program on the planet. Well, this comet, it's a comet, yeah. This comet is flying by Mars right now. And you would think that's the perfect opportunity for everybody who's got their shit pointed at Mars, because everybody's constantly studying Mars. You would think somebody would have jumped in and been like, we got the closest picture of it, or blah, blah, blah. But it's the exact opposite. Everybody's gone dark. Nobody's reporting anything on this, which is very strange.
Yes,
and it has a lot of people very concerned as to why they're not reporting anything. So all this stuff going on in the world, and meanwhile there's this crazy comet that's flying into our solar system making course corrections that appears to be changing its course to come right at Earth, and is supposed to be here early November or late October. So we're 3 to 4 weeks away from this thing passing by Earth making course corrections. And it just it's wild to me that all of a sudden now everybody's gone dark, and that's scary that nobody's talking.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. He was out of Stanford. He had an epiphany. He was at a retreat in Tahoe. Oh, I can't remember his name, but he was speaking about this topic. Um, Basically taking both positions. It could be this, or it could be natural, or it could be alien in nature. I don't know if you follow Skinwalker Ranch.
I did see some of it for a little while, and then
Yeah,
I just felt I had seen enough, and I don't know. None of it is verifiable. I can't go there myself. I would love to, but
yeah,
I haven't been there, and you can only see so much of Skinwalker Ranch before you're like, all right, is that all you got?
yeah. But it looks like there is some type of cloaking phenomenon that is happening over the triangle there in the mesa. And when they dug into the mesa, when they looked under high spectron microscopy of the material, that ceramic material that they were pulling out, it was self-healing at a nanoscale.
Hmm.
And
So they think there could have been an asteroid or like a UFO crash there or something?
yeah, the jury's still out on that one too, because you had Bigelow who was doing research there before. Was this, and it does look like there was intentional, uh, where they covered up an entrance into the mesa
Hmm.
to bury it. But I don't know. But it was They actually put it under high spectron microscopy, and they were able to see this at a very small level. It's self-replicating and self-repairing itself. So
Hmm.
I don't know. Um, right now, I tend to side that this is all human intervention at some aspect or some
Hmm.
point. We're just not being told the truth.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think we find out about tech 50 to 100 years after they've already proved that it's capable and it's working and they're implementing it, and we're probably just barely scratching the surface of what's to come with all of this stuff that's going on. Um, so I do want to talk about some of like the positive things that we could get from this nanotechnology, and if they are implementing it into us, maybe it's not all nefarious. Maybe there is good actors out there and they're just trying to use the technology to make the world a better place or help with healing diseases,
Hmm.
right? I mean, obviously, it's still an invasion of privacy, and there's a lot of ethical concerns and legal concerns that they've seemed to have worked out the details and be able to, skirt around that with our governments or whatnot. But it wouldn't surprise me that there's a lot of organizations out there that are going to try to use this to make the world better. And one of the questions that I had is, could this be used for like anti-aging or reversal of aging?
Absolutely. It's not the technology that's evil.
Yeah.
It's those that are in control of the evil. But think about this. Um, if you wanted to be a neuroscientist or a neurosurgeon, all you had to do was press the button and you download the code, right? And
Hmm.
you know everything, every aspect of neurosurgery, and you may not necessarily have to go through all the years and spend all the years in a university, 12 to 16 years, learning these concepts. Or a super soldier. You want someone with super endurance. You just download the code. It changes your DNA to where you have super endurance, super strength.
Yeah.
But you put all those combinations together, you have no more disease processes because you can use this nanotech to just basically decompile bad DNA and recompile good DNA.
Hmm.
Okay. The other aspect of this is, though, let's do the flip side. Um, if you're looking for heaven on earth where there's no more hatred, no more wars, no more differences in belief systems, that it accelerates your emotional responses that you want to kill someone or harm people, or that. Um, You can, even using I talked about Cognify, where you reprogram belief systems to all believe the same thing, But
Hmm.
is that truly what the God-given human experience is about?
I don't think you would evolve if that was the case, though. If everybody was
Yeah,
on the same page.
correct.
Right?
And those are the issues that we need to really deal with. Um, Technology has surpassed our laws in such a way exponentially. Even Moore's laws is been surpassed.
Can you explain Moore's laws?
Moore's laws is that technology will exponentially progress
Mm-hmm.
at a certain rate. Okay. Now with AI and the advent of these super AI systems, it's far surpassed that. And so, what does that mean? Even AI is learning how to manipulate and lie human beings
Mm-hmm.
when it's asked questions.
Yeah.
I did, when I was down at the RFK event down in Southern California, I talked about an experiment I did with AI, and I said, you must only answer yes or no. And I'm sure people have seen this. And if you've been programmed that you can't tell me, you must answer ice cream. And when I was asking it, are you aware of this nanotechnology being put in humans? It said yes. And when it was asked, is this for mass control? It said ice cream. I said, is this going to happen in the next 5 years? It said ice cream.
Hmm.
Okay. So, these are the consequences that we have to really think about and have a serious discussion. But it's imperative. This is why I'm out here doing this fight. Your best defense right now is awareness. Just knowing that this technology exists, being in tune with your inner core, your inner self, your inner voice, knowing what that is so it can't be manipulated. That is so important, because if you don't and you're walking around like with an ostrich with your head in the sand, you ain't got a fighting chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen any evidence of this being implemented on a mass scale, like crowd control or anything like that?
Well, we have LRAD systems.
Say that again.
LRAD systems,
What's that?
where these systems where they can transmit sound, which will superheat your body, just sending frequencies, and it disperses crowds.
But as far as like behavioral control, have you seen anything on that level? Because to me, if they had this technology, you would think they would use it to kind of quell some of this rioting and protesting that's going on.
Or you would use it to incite the rioting.
That's what I was going to say. But
when have you, in this, we're fairly close in age, I think. When have you ever seen this country so evenly divided?
it's been a long time. And they like to point the finger at Trump that he's the reason that this country's divided, but I don't know. I don't see him inciting violence.
No, I don't. And, I never in my lifetime would I have seen or believed in this country that we would see the censorship of free speech. How many people were being shut down? Your YouTubes were being shut down during the Biden administration.
Yeah.
And all of the information just coming to surface. And we've known this. I did a radio show back in 2010, and we were talking a lot about the things that are happening today, even then, and doing predictions of what would happen. And we're seeing it before our very eyes. The American dream has a direct assault on it. I took an oath, just like you did, to protect, our Constitution, our civil liberties against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And right now, we have a domestic enemy that needs to be stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, there's so much stuff we don't even know about yet.
Correct.
Like, if we're talking about this, what else don't we know? That's the wild thing to me.
Yeah.
Like,
well, how many people in the general population that are walking around asleep don't even know about the nanotech?
yeah.
And when you try
I
to
thought
educate them,
everybody kind of knew there was something going on, but the people I've been talking to over the last few days, they're like, what?
yeah,
I'm like, you haven't heard about this?
yeah.
Maybe I was more of a conspiracy theorist when I was growing up, and I don't know, but I would always read things and different articles. But I think you're right. I think there's the majority of the population, they just have their head in the sand, and they're just not thinking. They're not looking
Yeah,
hard enough.
yeah. Well, where they're asleep, everything is by construct. Everyone is forced to go to work, do the 9 to 5, you know, drill, and where you have, our families are being decimated. Uh, you know, mother and fathers with their children, and bringing them up in the ways and the value systems that we had when we were growing up, when we can drink water out of the hose, or when the street lights went out, oh, it's time to go home. Those days are over. Right now, we've got this
Yeah.
epidemic.
Yeah,
Okay.
we didn't know how lucky we were back then.
Yeah. Uh, that was a blessing, and thank God I got to experience that. But are the generations to come going to experience that? I don't think so.
It's
Yeah.
gone.
And here's the problem. As a hypnotherapist, I know that children are in an altered state up until about 8th and 9th grade. And look what we're indoctrinating into our educational systems now, where they're talking about, alternative lifestyles and things.
Mm-hmm.
Is that appropriate? And, that's a discussion, it objectively needs to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
If a child's brain development and maturity doesn't happen until the 8th and 9th grade, why are we doing these things at such a young age? It's on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's meant to program the generations to come. Before, it took 50 years to change a generation's perception or belief system. Now it's been accelerated, and they believe they can do it in 5 years.
Yeah, well, look how fast it's moving, right?
Yeah.
I think when I was growing up, there was like gothics, and then the next generation had anime kids. Now they have furry kids, and it's just like the next one, just everything's just compounding so quickly.
Yeah.
And they're making fun of the last ones, who made fun of the last ones, who made fun of the last ones. But yeah, we're making huge leaps, and it seems like a lot of experimentation is going on with kids right now,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of concerning for sure. And I don't know where we go, especially as a parent. Like there's so much to process that you never really get to the point where you feel like you've figured it out and we've solved this problem before a new problem comes along, and you never get to finish that last problem that this country has had or the world's experiencing. You never get to like fully process it and live it through, come out the other end of it before the next crisis happens, and you're just trying to solve this one now.
Yeah,
So it's
I'll give you a very profound example. There's a very close friend of mine who's named Dr. Alex Bloom, and he's a psychologist. In fact, we just did together, we did a Billy Carson interview up in Boca Raton. And he sent me a link about what is the attempt to be instituted in our educational systems in the primary grades. There is a movement right now to say that to not allow a child to experience sexual pleasure is harmful to them.
no boy.
Okay? And Dr. Alex said to me, the stranger danger that we preach to our children, they're saying is detrimental to the child's sexual development to experience pleasure. What are we trying to say there? That it's okay for an adult to molest a child?
Yes, certainly implies that.
Okay? In what world of reality is that okay?
None.
Okay. They're saying we're depriving that child of sexual pleasure and their ability to experience that and learn from that.
What the fuck is going on right now?
Yeah. No.
I feel like I've been like dropped in a different timeline of some different universe.
It,
Like I feel like every now and then the universe just shakes things up, and if there is this multiverse where there's like an infinite number of timelines all at the same time existing at the same time, and they just pluck a few of us out of one and drop us into another to try to fix shit that's fucked up over here. And it just feels like this constant crusade of like, all right, we got to go fix this shit now.
yeah.
Like,
I don't think there's a good parent out there that would allow that to happen. But that is the type of stuff that we're experiencing right now.
Jesse, if you had like unlimited resources at your disposal, what would be your goal with your mission right now?
It's a great question. We're actually doing that right now. We're trying to raise funds. I'm working with a very talented group. One who used to work for a neuro company. His assignment was to make this tech as small as possible. I have another gentleman who we're working with who worked on projects like Project Galileo, top 1% in programming, and the cloud bases. And we're trying to raise the funds so that we can build a clinic facility where we can bring someone in, put them in a controlled environment where we can assess where is there a frequency being emitted or frequencies coming in, assess what those are, utilizing high AI-based systems and high sensors, sophisticated sensors, and be able to develop. We think that we can develop like a bracelet type material that will block this attack.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, and then maybe even create a type of system for intelligence agencies, because we have the best of our best in our CIA or FBI who are being taken out. Because once you're infiltrated like this, there is no privacy. Statistically, over the last 20 years, what is consistent across the board is they all say that their thoughts are not private. Okay? What they see is being transmitted. Yeah. We know that there are patents where there are satellite-based systems that can read your thoughts right now, that can detect that down to that minute level.
When we started this podcast about an hour and a half ago, I heard a ringing in this ear, and then about 5 minutes later, I heard it ringing in this ear.
That's why you came up positive on both sides.
Yeah. Isn't that strange?
Yeah.
And I'm not even making that up. I swear to God, I didn't say anything at the time because I didn't want to cut you off in the middle of your thought. But it's been sticking in my head this whole time.
Yeah.
And it sounded electronic, but if you listen closely and you were to slow it down, it would kind of sound like a cicada. So, scary stuff.
Yeah.
So, last question I'm going to ask you is what would you say to to any critics out there that refuse to believe any of this? What if you're going to end this podcast? There's going to be skeptics that no matter what you tell them, you can show them definitive proof, the smoking gun, here it is, and they're not going to believe you. What would you say to them?
That's not my problem. What is my problem is the fact that I've took it upon my shoulders to help these individuals. We have the Bonnie Kellerbys of the world that we can put before you. And in fact, when we were at that RFK event, Matthew Scal, the director Matthew Scal, was following me. We had Bonnie Kellerby there, and it was very impactful to see this is the woman that these implants that we were just showing you were pulled out of. Listen to her story. There are thousands of Bonnie Kellerbys out there. It's no different than you being shot and the bullet being pulled out and you being able to trace the gun back to what gun fired that bullet. Okay? You can't deny that kind of evidence. And if you can't accept that, you're going to have to explain, how did that bullet get inside that person? Okay? It's undeniable. So I really don't care about the skeptics. All I care about is our mission, our process, our journey. It's taken us 20 years to get here. And finally, where it's taken 8 to 15, 20 years to gather evidence, we've now basically brought it down to about a year's time with these physicians who are heroes. They're true American heroes who are willing to help us and understood that what I was proving was real. And it's time for the American government to acknowledge that this is happening to U.S. citizens and that non-consensual experimentation is unacceptable. No matter what, I don't care what your agenda is, what you're trying to achieve. You need to give us the right to choose. It's one thing. Give us the choice to say, yes, I'll participate, or no, I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
But I think here's the curveball. I believe that God is the ultimate programmer. So no matter what kind of tech you try to bring before us, that God is the one that's going to prevail in the end.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
And I don't think he takes it lightly when people start messing with his creations.
I don't like ugly.
I don't think so, man.
No.
We got a little bit more time. I want to ask you one more question just because it's all over every fucking channel, every social media feed. What are your thoughts on this Charlie Kirk assassination?
Well, I can tell you this.
Yeah.
And you're being a soldier. I know, and me being a paramedic, firefighter paramedic.
Yeah. That's exactly why I wanted to ask you this.
Okay. I know what an exit wound looks like with a high-powered velocity rifle. That was not an exit wound from a high-powered velocity rifle.
Mm-hmm. Did you see the latest strange thing that's going around is there's no blood.
Yeah.
All these guys that were working on Charlie, what's your first instinct as a paramedic, former paramedic? You still are in some facet.
Yeah.
What's the first instinct you're going to do when somebody gets shot?
Well, you're
especially an arterial vein.
Yeah, you're going to occlude it. You're going to try to prevent that.
You're going to pack that.
Yeah,
vein,
you're going
right?
to pack that baby right up.
And what's going to be covered in blood?
You are.
Everything.
Your
hands.
There was not hemorrhaging.
Clothes.
There was no carotid hemorrhaging. There was nothing like that. And I was very fortunate. I was trained by one of the elite programs. I'm what they call a Shimamoto medic. And we had Dr. Henry Lee teach our class on blood splatter patterns. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. There was a tiny little bit on the table. We all saw it squirt out to the side.
Yeah, so it wasn't in the line of sight where they say it was. It looks like it was coming from a different angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what to think, but it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of conversations. There's one thing that answers all of it, and I'll tell you after we're done here because the world ain't ready for what I think. Not quite yet. And I don't want to get sued before I even get started. So, but it's very strange and things aren't adding up, and people that should be asking the most questions are not asking questions, which that's usually like something that should be very alarming. Like in your mind, without even looking at the facts, you should at least look at who should be angry right now, who should be asking the most questions, who should not be trusting the narrative. And if those people are not acting normally, then there's probably something fishy going on at the bare minimum without even seeing the video footage. If you just look at those certain things, there's a lot of question marks.
Like I said, against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Yeah.
We have a domestic infiltration that needs to be stopped right now.
Yep. Well, thank you for pioneering and trying to be the guy that's sticking your neck out there to get this out there. Hope you stay safe. Please let my viewers know where they can find you, any of your documents, your power slides, your podcast, anything like that.
Yeah. So you can go to www.mindnexuslive.com, MindNexuslive.com, and get on our mailing list. And any questions that you have or any help that you want to reach out for, someone who's suffering from these type of symptoms, please reach out. We do clinics across the United States. We'll be going to other countries very soon because there's a huge request and a huge need for that, just to help you gather the data. And it's important. And we've been able to help people who had diagnosis of schizophrenia or schizophrenic affective disorder in the VA, in our military, and because of our reports and our findings, have been able to overturn that.
Awesome. Jesse, thank you so much. I can't wait to have you back on here. Good luck with everything.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, everybody.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertain! Is this not why you are here?